If you like that classic Baja or pre-runner style, then this Gladiator Roll Bar will be just the right fit for your 2016 to 2023 Tacoma. Featuring a clean design and plenty of flexibility, the Gladiator gives your truck a cool classic style that lives up to its name, and it's going to make your truck stand out in a crowd. Roll bars like this are some of my favorite mods on pickups, if only for the nostalgia factor. And on a Toyota, they just look absolutely right. Even if you're not the biggest fan of Back to the Future, I'm sure that you know Marty McFly's iconic Toyota pickup from the end of the first movie. And if you too want to make your Tacoma look that much cooler or get some additional lighting up there for off-roading, the Gladiator here is going to be the right fit for you. It makes the plain Jane Tacoma look like it's about to go racing in the Baja 1000 or the Paris-Dakar Rally, or that it's just going to go pull off some jumps in a stadium truck race. Whatever the case, I think it looks great. And the Gladiator here is a bit different than your typical roll bar or sport bar though, in that you have some additional pieces that run further back on the bed. It gives the truck a bit of a different look, but it's nothing too over the top. Also included here are mounting points at the top for additional lighting. You can get up to a 40-inch long LED light bar, or you can fit up to 4 round rally lights up there. Whatever your preference, there's room to mount it directly to the bar, and it's also pre-wired and grounded for power connections for those lights by way of the included third brake light. That means that even though this will cover up most of your factory third brake light, you'll still have that added safety here and make sure that your truck is more visible to other drivers. The majority of the bar is made up of 3-inch round steel tubing with heavy-duty steel plate making up the rest of the pieces. Everything is finished off in a texture black powder coat for additional protection and style, and this is made much like an OEM type accessory. The piping is all cold rolled and mandrel bent to keep the bend smooth and help resist damaging the material. That third brake light that we just talked about is powered by LEDs, and it comes with most of the wiring done for you. Plus the whole thing is going to bolt together, making for a pretty easy installation. We'll talk more about that momentarily. Pricing comes in at about $900, which positions this one in sort of the middle of the market. It is a cool classic look, and it is more affordable than some other options. And while it doesn't have all the fancy features, it more than does the job, and it looks great doing it. And really, you can't ask for much more than that. Installation gets a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and the job should take you around 2 hours to complete. Now there is a bit of assembly to do, and you will have to get that third brake light wire in. You'll also need to drill a few holes in order to get the base plate secured down as well, but that's still not a complicated process. We're going to walk you through the process step by step right now, so for that, let's head on out to the shop.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, wire strippers and crimpers, 10mm wrench, 4mm Allen wrench, a test light, 5 and 8mm Allen sockets, 10 and 13mm sockets, and a grabber. Today we're installing a roll bar on our Tacoma, so let's get started. So now first thing I've done is laid out all of our pieces. I'm gonna be building this whole thing on the ground, and then we'll lift the full assembly into the bed of the Tacoma. Now all of the hardware that I'm installing, I'm gonna just install hand tight because we do wanna be able to make adjustments once it's in there. We're gonna have to stretch it so that it fits between the bed rails. So we're gonna start by connecting our tubes in the middle with some M8 bolts with lock washer and flat washer. So now I'm gonna take my front hoop, slide that center section over the outer, and then I'm gonna take my bolt with lock washer and flat washer and thread it in. Again, we're leaving that loose so that we have adjustment once we get this into the Tacoma. And then on the other side, we're just gonna do that same thing. Then we're gonna do that same thing for our next hoop. Now we'll get to our next one. We're just gonna pretty much do that exact same thing. Slide that in. Get your bolt on the bottom. Thread it into that hole. Do the same on the other side. Now the next thing we need to do is connect our 2 bars, but before we do that, we want to get our wire for our third brake light run. We're going to have to put it through this hole and run it over towards the driver's side all the way down to the bottom. So you're going to need a tool like a grabber here so you can go in from the other ends. You're going to grab onto that wire and then pull it through. So the first thing we want to do is start feeding it this way. gonna get those wires in. And then my sheath. I'm just gonna shove this all the way in, and then I'm gonna go with the grabber from the other end to pull it through. So now on our frontmost hoop, we've got a slot we can go in from the bottom here. So I'm gonna put my grabber in as far as it'll go. And we're just gonna try to grab onto that. Now I'm not having much luck with the grabber, so I'm just gonna come back and remove this bolt. Slide that out. It looks like it's pretty bunched up in there. Now I'll grab that, pull it through. Get my grabber at the other end. Now I've got it on the other side, so I'm just going to pull that slack and I can reinstall my bolt. And now we want that wiring to come out of this grommet. So to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to pop the grommet out. Pull my wires. I'm going to pull my wire through that grommet. Now I'll take the grommet I removed, slide it over the wires. And then I can shove that grommet back into place. Now we can connect our two hoops together with our M6 bolt and flat washer. And then on the bottom, we've got another flat washer and a nut. And now I'm gonna have to make an adjustment to line up this side. And then we'll get that same hardware in there. So now we're going to install our little filler panel. Now we have rib nuts in these two bars. We've got 3 here, there's 1 right here, and then we've got 1 that we need to nut and bolt down here. So I'm just going to start with my M6 bolts with flat washers. Just going to get all my threads started. And then we have our bolt and flat washer, with a flat washer and nut for our bottom one here. And then do the same thing on the other side, leave them loose for now. Next we're going to install the bottom part that's going to sit on our actual bed rail. So we'll raise this up into place. You want to make sure that this 90-degree bend is on the inside so it can sit on the inside of the bed rail. If this is on the outside, you need to flip sides. One more thing is you need to make sure that these little caps are on there. Out of the box, they were already installed on here, so if yours aren't, make sure you throw them on. And then we're going to be taking our countersunk bolts and threading those into the threaded holes. Now I'll do the same thing on the other side and flip it back over. We'll grab a buddy to help us lift it onto the bed. So now I got my buddy, we're gonna lift this onto the bed. I'm just gonna slide it back so that it's flush with the back of the bed. Now to mount this thing to our bed, you've got a couple different options. If you've got the utility rails, there are blocks that you can get to slide in here. It can line up with that, and then you just put a bolt through it, thread it in. If you don't have that, you can also drill into your bed rail. So you would just mark with a marker here. Once you have it in a spot that you like it, you can pull it off, drill your hole, and then you can put a bolt in through there. Now for demonstration purposes, we're not going to be drilling through the bed, and I don't have these blocks to install them. But if you go that route, you just need to pop the cap off the end of the rail, slide them in, line them up with your 4 holes, and then just thread your bolt in, tighten that down. So now I'm going to get our wiring set up. So I'm going to pop out our driver's side tail light so that we can splice into our brake light wires. So I'm going to take a 10mm socket to remove the 2 bolts holding the tail light. You got one up here. We're actually missing the one at the bottom because the bottom is cracked down there. So I'm just going to remove this top one with a 10mm socket. And then you can just pull that straight out. Now I'm just going to disconnect these. And then we'll just set that to the side. So now while we're here, I put a pole wedged in between the driver's seat and the brake pedal to hold the brakes. So now we're going to take a test light, probe inside our connectors, and find which one is for the brake lights. So I've got the other side of my test light connected to a bare metal ground. And we're just going to probe all of our pins. And now it's lighting up on this blue wire, so we know that we can use that for our power source. So now that we know which one's our power wire, we need to find our ground wire. Now on this white wire, we also have one of the connectors that we had on our blue. So I can assume that this is the ground, but we're just going to double check that to confirm. So I'm going to put the ground side of my test light onto that power wire connector. And then if we probe into the other one, if it's a ground, it's going to light up. If this is a power or signal wire, it's not going to light up. So now that is lighting up, so we've confirmed that that's a good ground to use. So we're going to be running our power into the blue and our ground into the white. Now we need to run our wires to our taillight bucket. Now we don't have enough wire to get there, so I've got some extra wire I'm going to crimp onto here to extend it. I don't have red and black at the moment, so I'm using yellow. I'll use that for my power, and the brown for the ground. So now we're just going to run this towards the back, and then we can crimp on our wire. I'm going to run it underneath of here, and you can kind of tuck it right between this mounting bracket and the bed rail. Now I'll leave that here for now while I crimp on my wires. So I'm going to take my wires and strip back some lead with some wire strippers. Do the same thing on the wires that I'm going to be extending these with. And I'll just get both sides of each of those wires to make it a little bit easier later. And now I'm going to twist up the lead on my negative. Slide on a butt connector. Crimp it down. Give it a tug, make sure it's on there good. And then I'm going to take the brown wire that I'm using for the ground, put that into the other side. And then crimp that down. Once again, give it a good tug, make sure it's not going anywhere. And then we're just going to do that same thing on our power. on there nice and tight. So now I'll just finish tucking that up out of the way. So now I'm just gonna take some electrical tape to wrap up the wires, keep them protected. You can also use wire sheath if you have it. I'm just gonna start right at the end of that sheath. And I'm just gonna check my length. We don't want to tape too far where we can't put a connector on there. So now we just need to find a way to run our wires into the taillight bucket. Now the easiest is just going to be to drill a hole through this black metal piece at the back. For demonstration purposes, we're not going to do that. So I'm going to run it down into here, and then we have holes that we can drop it down to the ground and then back up through our taillight bucket. So pop this off. I'm going to run my wires through one of these holes. Down towards the ground. Pop this back into place. And then once again, this is for demonstration purposes, so I wouldn't necessarily run it through there. I would drill that hole to get you directly into there. And now we're just going to tie this wire up here. I'm going to grab a zip tie and a stick-on clip so we can keep this nice and neat. So now I've got one of these zip tie clips. It's going to double stick down. You can run a zip tie through it and wrap up that wire. So I'm going to get that around the wire first. And then peel the backing. And then snip off the excess of that zip tie. So now you can go underneath, find your wires hanging down, and then I'm gonna run them up to this hole in our taillight bucket. Pull them through. And then you've got a few options for how you want to splice these into these wires. Now you can do something like this, where you cut the wire, put them into a female spade connector, and then you crimp a male spade connector onto here and plug it in. Instead of this, you could use a T-tap, which would go around the wire, it would pinch it, and then your male spade connector would go into there. Or you can use something like this, where you would put this side across the wire, crimp down on it, and then you could have your wire coming into the top here, and that would make your connection like that. Now we already have these female spade connectors on here, so I'm just gonna use those in combination with the male spade connector. Then I'm gonna take my wire, slide my male spade connector onto it. Crimp it down. Same thing on my other wire. And then our yellow wire is connected to the red wire for power, so that's going to go to the blue wire. Plug that in. Take the brown wire that's connected to the black, plug that into the white. And I'm just going to tuck that wire and we'll reinstall our taillight. So now we'll just plug in 3 connectors on the back of the taillight. They're all different, so you can't mess them up. Tuck the wires, slide that into place, and then you can reinstall your 2 bolts, or just the one in our case. Tighten it down with a 10mm socket. So now we need to go back and tighten everything down. So once you have your sides bolted to your bed rails, I would grab both sides here and pull apart to expand this. That'll get it straightened out. And then we'll grab a 5mm Allen socket for the 4 bolts that connect our 2 tubes. Now grab a 4mm Allen wrench and 10mm socket for the 2 bolts that connect our hoops. And now we can go to our side panels. We need to tighten up our 4 just Allen bolts and then the 1 bolt and nut. So I'm going to start with that one. 4mm Allen wrench, 10mm socket. And then we'll just take a 4mm Allen wrench for the rest of the bolts. A ball end would help here with the angles that you're working at. Do that same thing on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Gladiator Roll Bar in black for your 2016 to 23 Tacoma. Thank you for watching. For all things Tacoma, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.